The ISA is there to help with conversion. The ISA is there to help with conversion. And like you said, Johnny, they consider them an employee because they have a fixed cost for you. It is a fixed cost, either salary plus benefits plus taxes, or if you're outsourcing, it's going to be a monthly retainer every single month. Whatever model, if it's in-house, if it's outsourced, it doesn't matter to me. It's a fixed cost that goes on your P&L, whether you sell real estate or not, right?
Hey everybody, it's Johnny Mo. Welcome to an awesome webinar. We got lots of great things going on this week, and this one is special because I really think what we're going to talk about right now is super important. Before I introduce my guest, if there's ever questions, if you're on Zoom, put them in the chat. If you're on Facebook, put them in the comment section, and we're going to be monitoring that and get to them. I'm happy to introduce a pretty smart dude who's doing some pretty cool things in the ISA world, making your job a lot easier. Gus, I'm going to say it the right way, Gustavo Munez Castro from PowerISA. What's happening, Gus? How are you?
Hey, Johnny, you killed it. Nicely done. Nicely done. Well done. Got that. Rolled right off the tongue for you. Yeah, happy to be here, talking about the topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is inside sales, ISA for real estate. And, we run a pretty big team, the largest team in North America, 120 folks strong, full-time employees, every single one of them. So we make a lot of calls, right? And we hire a lot of people, and we launch a lot of campaigns. We get to see, it's a pretty interesting position because we get to see the inner workings of so many different teams, different campaigns that we've got. And I love, taking that knowledge and sharing it with the community, sharing it back, because regardless of where you are in your journey, you might be a solo agent listening to us today, because guess what? You have, if you don't have an ISA, you are the ISA on your team, right? You're doing that phone follow-up, you're doing that phone qualification, you're setting appointments. That's your job. If you've got an ISA in-house, how can you make them a better ISA, right? Or if you're at the point of your business where you want to hire your first ISA, well, what's the best way to get the best ROI from that hire? So, kind of regardless of where you are, what stage you're on in your business, I love sharing this information with folks because it can really make a big difference, make it move the ball forward for them, just by asking that really simple question. How can I get the best ROI from an ISA? And I love the question. I love the question. They're going to kind of change the things a little bit, right? And hey, okay, great. How can I get the best ROI from an ISA, and approach it from that point of view?
Yeah, and I think that's important. ROI, we say that word a lot, or that term a lot, but it's important when we're in a direct pay for results world, right? We need to ROI, return on investments, right? I'm like results on investment. I don't mind paying you whatever the number is, as long as I'm getting back my money or my time, one of the two. So just so everybody knows, if you're listening to this and you may be new to the business or whatever, ISA, what does ISA stand for?
Yeah, the great question. ISA is Inside Sales Agent for Real Estate. Inside Sales Agent for Real Estate. Other words for that are appointment setter for real estate, telemarketer for real estate, all of those different, usually anyone that sits in the office all day and pounds the phone, pounds the text messages, setting appointments for you, that's the role we're talking about. And it can have different names. It can be a role, right? You are the ISA half the day from 9 to 11. You're the ISA on your team. You might have, your buyer's agents fulfilling that role. Not the best idea ever, but you might have them fulfilling that role, setting appointments based on follow-up with leads, setting appointments. They might be doing it. Power to you. You figured it out. All these different people can do that role. That's the role. ISA for real estate.
I'm going to ask everybody right now to do me a favor. Write down what your hourly worth is. Just simply I know what my hourly, if somebody asks me how much do I got to pay you an hour, $1,000 an hour, that's my time worth, right? If you're not willing to pay me, then don't pay me and we don't have to work together. I'm going to ask you all to write down what your time value is. And if you want to do it the old fashioned way, how much did you make divided by basically 40 hours a week, right? So I think it's 2,000 and some odd. Divide your yearly gross by that number, and you're going to come out with your hourly number, because by the end of this, I suspect that we're going to be hearing about different packages and pricing, and then we're going to do some math to show you how crazy it is not to hire somebody like this. It's called leverage, right? It's called leverage. So let's jump into that. What are some things? And before we jump into it, Gus, I just want to preface it with this. Real estate agent, I've been one for 20 years, so I can pick on you all, right? Real estate agents are really famous for abdicating and not delegating. And there's no place in when you're becoming the business owner, if you would, or emerging into a team or a team leader. You no longer are a solo agent, self-employed agent. You are now becoming a business, and you have to understand that these are business expenses, and sometimes you get paid less, but now you start to run it like a business. So you bring on, in theory, an employee. Just look at it as an employee, a critical employee. I've always had a telemarketer. They were critical for my business. I'd walk in and be like, here's your 3 appointments. Oh, yay, right? But with the ISA, please, agents, don't abdicate thinking that you're just going to throw the Hail Mary and they're going to pick it up and boom, it's automatically magic. You got to almost have some idea of your systems, and you got to have some idea of what you're doing. But let's jump into that. Let's start to talk about the ISA process and what's the best way to get the ROI on your, I didn't even say that right. What's the best way to get the ROI on your, say this one, Gus. What's the best way to get your ROI on your ISA? That's hard to say.
It's a great ROI for your ISA. And that's great. And it starts exactly with what you said, Johnny. I love the way you set that up, teed it up for me, because it starts with, why do you even need an ISA? Let's start there, right? Really simple process. How does it fit in? I'm going to be really honest with the audience. We work with a lot of teams, individual agents, small teams, very large teams. We work with the #1 team out of California, Best Back Homes, Niagara Wall, 700 or 1,000, 2,000. There's thousands of units every single year. And we work with all those levels of clients. The biggest difference I see in the people that get the highest return on investment, 10x, 20x, 30x, is that they have a process for the ISA to come into. They know exactly what they want the ISA to do, because they were either doing it themselves and they want to replace their job, their work, right? Or they have a lead generation system. They have a lead conversion system. They go, great, I'm paying this much money for Zillow leads. I'm paying this much money for Realtor.com or Facebook or Google, or I'm paying this much money to get these lists, right? I'm generating, I want to do cold calling. I'm generating lists at this cost. And I need the ISA to do this and set, like I said, set 3 appointments today, set 2 appointments today, set 2 appointments a week, right? If you're doing like circle prospecting or something. So the person that knows, has that idea, has a model that they want the ISA to fit into, way more likely that they're going to reach their goal than someone that says, hey, I've heard of this ISA thing, I want one. I don't know what they even do, but let me put it in there. So the first thing that we do when we onboard a campaign is you want to paint that picture. And that can be a 5-minute conversation with someone that knows exactly what they want, or it could be a 2-hour conversation with someone where we have to design that for them. Okay, where does it make sense to put your ISA, right? What are your lead sources? Are they going to be doing cold calling? Have you ever done cold calling before? Do you know? Because they can give you a bunch of appointments through cold calling. Do you know what to do with those appointments, right? All of those things, and I'm going to break these down, folks. I'm giving you the broad overview first. I'm going to break down the process, but all of those things go into your return on investment. Every single one of those things, right? But let's start at the very beginning. The ISA is there to help with conversion. The ISA is there to help with conversion, and like you said, Johnny, you consider them an employee because they have a fixed cost for you. It is a fixed cost. Either salary plus benefits plus taxes, or if you're outsourcing, it's going to be a monthly retainer every single month. Whatever model, if it's in-house, if it's outsourced, it doesn't matter to me. It's a fixed cost that goes on your P&L, whether you sell real estate or not, right? That and those kind of expenses, you mentioned, Johnny, you think like a business owner. Adding fixed costs that have nothing to do with sales should give you pause. You got to go, whoa, bro. Let me make sure I know what I'm doing here, because that's the reason real estate teams run so lean, right? We have a lot of commission salespeople because that's the most sustainable way to grow. But you need the employees too. You need them. You need the assistant, you need the admin, you need the listing coordinator, you need the ISA once your team needs it, right? So you're going to add that expense. It's a fixed expense. regardless of what they're calling, they are a line item on your expense sheet. Okay, great. There's that cost. Then there's the cost of what are they going to call? What is it they're calling? Are they calling the Zillow leads, the Realtor.com leads? Are they calling Google or Facebook leads, Ylopo leads? Are they all of the different inbound internet leads? What are they calling, right? That has a cost too. That can be $500 a month. That can be $50,000 a month if you're one of the big accounts on some of these portal sites, right? It can be tens of thousands of dollars. That is part of your cost as well. There's another, you can also, okay, let's not do an inbound internet leads. Those are the most expensive, right? Let's say you're generating calling lists. You're calling the neighbor, your target neighborhood. Hey man, I own this subdivision. I own this neighborhood. I'm going to call and door knock and, get in front of every single person in that subdivision, in that neighborhood. And calling is one of the ways I'm going to do it. It's one of the ways, not the only way. It's one of the ways I'm going to do it. So if you want to generate, I don't know if you've done this before, Johnny, but if you generate a list of like 5,000 numbers to call, the cost of that versus the cost of 5,000 Zillow leads is not comparable. It's not in the same, same order of magnitude, right? It's like 2 orders of magnitude of a difference. Generating a cold list of numbers can be a couple $100, right? In that range. Maybe you went really high end, maybe $500, generate 5,000 numbers for your ISA to call. Generating 5,000 numbers for your ISA to call on any of these other sources, Google, Facebook, Zillow, Realtor.com, is $50,000, $500,000, maybe $50,000 at the very least. I mean, at least $50,000 is going to cost you. The lowest end, probably way more than that, more than that. So the difference in cost is significant. So if you can get prospecting to work, cold calling to work, the return on investment is massive compared to calling Zillow. The return, we're talking about, we're business owners. We're putting on our business owner hat. We're talking about ROI. The cost of the ISA is the same regardless. The cost of the lead is not the same. It is unbelievably different. Generating 5,000 numbers for cold calling is $500. Generating 5,000 numbers off of Zillow, at least $500,000, probably more than that, right? So if you can get some success out of that, you can do it. And here's a big thing I want to say really quick, because I see people going, oh my God, what do you mean cold calling? I hate that. Obviously, we're not talking about conversion rate. ROI is different than conversion rate. I'm not talking about which is the easiest to convert, which converts at a higher rate. It's a totally different discussion, right? Because yes, calling 10 Zillow leads should give you a solid buyer that signs a contract with you, right? Calling 10 of them, maybe 20, right? 20 Zillow leads should give you a bona fide qualified buyer. I agree with that. Those numbers are accurate, maybe even better than that if you're really skilled at those kind of leads. Calling 1 out of 10 Realtor.com leads should also give you a solid buyer, right? At least, probably more than that, right? So yes, calling 10 cold numbers is not going to give you a signed client, buyer or seller. It's just not, right? You might need to call 1,000 of those numbers to get a signed deal and ready to go, either a listing or a buyer listing, right? So the conversion rate is way different. I'm not going to argue on that. Yes, Zillow and Realtor.com convert the best, but today we're not talking about conversion rate. We're talking about return on investment. Those Zillow deals and those Realtor.com deals, they're great. I love them, but they are expensive. They are not cheap to do. So Johnny, I mean, you're an experienced agent. I'm sure you've done it all. What is your perspective on the cost per deal? I think the technical term is cost per acquisition. The investors call it that. They call it cost per acquisition. I mean, they're numbers guys. I mean, investors are much more like this than real estate agents are. But we should all be speaking the same language, right? It's about money. What's your cost per acquisition? Have you encountered that term? And what's it look like for you in your business?
Well, that is a great question. And it's going to segue me into, I feel like a politician because I'm going to skirt just a little bit, but there's a reason I'm going to do it. And there's a reason why ISAs are vital, more so if you're paying for leads. Okay. Oh, yeah. More so if you're paying for leads. I have a friend of mine who's also, she owned a brokerage, small indie brokerage. And I have lunch with her, once per quarter, twice per year, something like that. And we engaged into a conversation one day. And she told me that, I mean, she was a sync power user, right? She was like coaching sync and everything else like that. This gal knew her job. Okay. Anyways, she was made a classic mistake that a lot of brokers make, and they relied on the agent to convert the lead, to call the lead, and everything else like that. Last year, maybe it was the year before, she did a sampling. She had her assistant go through and do a sampling of the leads that were in there, because she's like, why am I spending so much and I'm broke? Right.
Yeah.
And she estimates that it was, so she took the sampling out of the leads that were there, and she estimates it was 30 some odd $million in business that she lost, that bought with other people, that was never even called.
You call them and they've closed. Oh, thanks, I'm good. I already bought a home. That's the worst call you can make, right? It's like, oh yeah, because they were in your database. You had their name, their number. You had a house they wanted to go take a look at, maybe. But you didn't follow. They didn't pick up. You didn't follow up. They never called you back. All these reasons. You call them 6 months later. Well, I'm good, Johnny. I bought a home. Somebody got that business, right?
That cost of acquisition was high in her. When you average everything out, her cost of acquisition was through the roof. And the goal, as the CEO of a company, is to try to get that cost of acquisition either down or leveraged out. 30 million. I don't know. I'm not very good at math, but that equals a crap load of money. That's more business than most agents are going to do in a year that she lost because of improper follow-up. And that's why I say, if you're paying for leads, you need an ISA. I mean, you just need, it's part of the game, right? You're not a lawyer, so you don't draft up legal documents. You're not ISAs offer that reactionary and consistent reactionary follow-up, right? Now, let me just jump over into cold calling and stuff. 10-10-20 is a real thing. If you all don't know what 10-10-20 is, 10 when a house is listed or sold, 10 on this side of the street in either direction and 20 on this side of the street are also going to sell. And I'll prove me right. Go to Zillow and type in an address. Nah, if you're in the sticks of Texas, it ain't going to work, right? Average areas. But you start to zoom in on those red dots and you'll see red dots, and the red dots are just in all these neighborhoods. So we followed this at RE/MAX for years, and there's still people there at my old RE/MAX office that still do this. They call that area, right? They call the expireds. They call, you know what I mean? There are two different methodologies, and there's two different reasons, but if you're paying for leads, you got to have that stopgap measure in place. I think with the ISA.
100%, because so people can see it as an expense. Oh my, I'm already paying for leads, Johnny. How can I afford an ISA? Well, I mean, what Johnny just said, you can't afford to not convert those leads. You have to factor in the follow-up, and just relying on your agents you can get really inconsistent results. Really, I'm gonna be kind. There's some pitfalls to that, right? Because we want the agents to wear all these hats. They have to be power prospectors, and they have to be great closers, and they have to be methodical at follow-up, and they have to be pleasant at open houses, and they got to be door knocking, and they got to be project managers to get that deal closed, and they got to be, wear all of these hats, right? And they got to go to networking events and be super nice and bubbly and all these things. Guys, it's really difficult to find anyone like that you can retain on your team for the long haul and be a great teammate. What the massive teams do, the big teams do, teams that are 10, 15, 20, 30 people in size, they specialize up the wazoo, right? They tell their buyer's agents, open doors and close deals. They basically tell them that, right? Talk to the person, be a great customer experience person, open the door, get the deal signed, because they're going to set appointments for them to go meet more people. And once the deal's under escrow, have someone helps them with that, right? They really narrow the focus of the buyer agent to be great customer experience, open the doors, get the deal signed, win those bidding wars, right? And just get it over the escrow line. We'll help you with the rest, and we'll get you the appointments to get those showings, to get those clients. They narrow it down to that, right? Yeah. And in my very humble opinion, it's the only way to scale a business. Right, to specialize, because if your only solution is to have buyer's agents or listing agents that are power prospectors and great at follow-up and great at converting appointments over the phone and great at closing appointments in person and great at organizing their showings and great at winning the bidding wars and great at managing the difficult transactions and attending the inspections and all of these things, your likelihood of finding great people is low, folks. is low. The more you complain about people on your team not doing the job, I sometimes want to go and say, okay, what job are you asking them to do? What job are you asking them to do, right? So I think specialization is the key to freedom, to scale, to having a profitable business. And we're talking about ROI. That's one of the secrets of kind of cracking that ROI formula, right? Specializing some of these roles and making your people really, really, really good at a smaller set of tasks. Make your people really, really good at a smaller set of tasks. You're not going to teach the ISA to go into the appointment and get that list and sign. You're not going to teach your ISA to manage a transaction and negotiate an inspection, right? You don't have to do that. They're going to pound the phone, make those 10 calls in that follow-up sequence. They're not going to miss them because that's their job. It's no longer the 15th thing they have to do that day. It's the only thing they have to do that day. Make that 10th attempt. Ask how many agents make 3 attempts to contact a new lead. 3 would be amazing. 3 would be great. There wouldn't be a PowerISA if we made 3 phone calls. 2 phone calls to every single lead. There would be no PowerISA. There wouldn't be need, right? But it's hard, guys. It's hard to do that. It's really difficult. I have empathy. I'm still an agent, right? I have empathy with folks to deal with this, right? So having an ISA to fill that gap, to fulfill that role, can open up a whole world of possibilities. A whole world. Better buyer agents, happier buyer agents, more successful buyer agents.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We live in a time now, 2021, when we're recording this, where we got different social medias that are continually changing, platforms, video we need to do. We got all these other things that we need to be doing. This allows your whole system. Your leads are coming in on auto drive, right? On whatever we call that, cruise control. So shouldn't your response, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's your lead. Now I want to preface I want to say 2 things. One is real simple. Several years ago, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, there's a small guy in the industry. Some of you may have heard of guy by the name of Gary Keller. And he said that mega teams are, the future. And because Zillow is becoming expensive and all these other sources are becoming expensive, he's right in a respect. He's 100% right, because it's too expensive as a new agent to become that Zillow premier agent or whatever, or compete against the never ending Facebook ads and Google ads. I mean, it is an expensive endeavor. So teams are the future. But your team, I want to break everybody's mind right now about what that team looks like. And, we might have this predisposition that it has to be real estate agents in my office. I got a buyer's agent. A team is simply the people that help you achieve a goal. Kevin Harrington, he's on the Shark Tank, one of the sharks on the Shark Tank. I had the privilege of some mentorship with him several years ago. And what he told me was, I used to have 300 employees. I got like 23 now, because I'm able to leverage. That's the thing I need you to walk away from this with. Leverage. I'm leveraging other people who can do it better and cheaper. And if it's not working out, I can let them go and bring somebody else in. So there's not that liability. So when you're looking at what does your team look like, a virtual ISA should be in that team. And that is a team. You can have just a virtual assistant, maybe an admin or a transaction coordinator, and kill it, because you're not dealing with that lead generation thing. You're closing deals yourself, right? So whether you're an individual agent or, a small agent, tiny team, or a large team or brokerage, an ISA is going to give you that specialty that agents don't possess or even like to do.
Absolutely. 100%, Johnny. Could have said it better myself. I mean, you got to understand that role. You got to understand that role and the value that it can add for you. It's a big thing. And we have the possibility to do it virtually. I used to have, I run a virtual ISA company. So it used to be kind of a little bit of some labor to convince people, hey, this role can be done virtually. Well, in the last year, guess what? Every role was done virtually, right? To some extent, right? So it was I think that mindset is really, the mindset has really shifted the last 12 months, 18 months because of the pandemic, right? I know it was hard for everybody. It was very difficult, but we adapted to it, folks. Real estate agents are some of the most adaptable, dynamic, nimble folks out there. And people did it where they couldn't do showings, or only one person could go into the house, and yet all these protocols, we survived it, right? And we're there, but we realized just how much of the role can actually be done virtually, which I think everyone's kind of mindset has changed in that aspect. So going back to it, taking this all the way back to those activities. So we've established ISA can be a big thing. ISA can be a game changer. Virtual ISA can also be a massive game changer because all the additional leverage you can add by having virtual teammates on your team, 100%, right? You can seem like a solo agent on the front end. Oh my goodness, how does Johnny do it? And you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 virtual professionals helping you on the back end, right? How does Johnny get his weekends back? How is he at dinner 6 p.m. every night? How can he do it and have 10 deals in escrow? How can he do it and have, that kind of an income? This is probably the answer, right? They've got a massive team. You just don't see them in the office. That's the only difference, right? That's why you see that big shift. And specifically talking about the ISA role, you were talking about it earlier. The online leads, I mean, they're great. I'm not going to complain about them. They're great because the conversion rate can be really high on those. It can be really high compared to cold call. The conversion rate is going to be higher. It's a much more pleasant call. Let's be honest about that. They're coming to you, right? So for a lot of folks, that's a huge mental block. The inbound internet lead, they're coming to me and they'll call them without a problem, right? It's just a big mindset shift for them. Gary Keller, though, I love this quote. I'm going to butcher this quote, Johnny, but Gary Keller would laugh at that. He goes, guys, the internet is just a bigger phone book than we had before. I used to call the phone, he cut his teeth calling expires, right? So he would call expired listings, look them on the phone book, and the internet is just a better phone book. Right? It's a step up. It's the same. He would literally say it's the same thing. It's the same thing. But if it's easier for you to make that call, if that's an inbound internet lead, power to you. That's great. Whatever helps you actually make the call and connect with that lead. I agree. Those internet leads are way easier to call. They're easier to generate. That's fine. But the cost per acquisition is always going to be higher for internet leads. You'd be surprised, Johnny. I actually went through this. I had a coaching client, and it was a significantly large team out of Utah. I'm not going to name names. It's a big team, very successful team, very successful team. They were successful in spite of it. They had not gone through the exercise of seeing, because they were generating Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads. They were generating their own Facebook leads on their own, and they had an agency. They hired an agency to generate Facebook leads for them as well, right? They were doing four main lead sources. I mean, they had a bunch more, but these were the main ones, 4. They had not gone through the exercise to see how much do those Zillow deals cost me? How much do those Realtor.com deals cost me? Cost per acquisition. How much is you actually making off these deals? And they were floored by the result, right? Because they realized they were making way more money from the marketing agency, actually, right? And I'm not going to drop any names, guys. I'm not referring anybody to any marketing agency. I don't even know who they were. I just knew it was from an agency, and they were making what, because they ran through that exercise. In the last 6 months, it has to be a window, guys. It can't be 30 days. The last 6 months, how much did I spend on those leads, marketing agency leads? How much income did it generate from those marketing agency leads? And do the math, right? I made this much money divided by this much cost. ISA cost, marketing agency cost, ad spend cost, all rolled up. It wasn't close. When they did the math on it, they were like, okay, we got to rethink this, right? Because when you do that analysis and you see which is the lead source that I'm making the most money of, the biggest ROI, right, for you, okay, how do I scale that sucker up, right? And for them, like for everyone in the world, it was like, how do I get more of my Zillow money into that, right? Because that's what everyone wants to move off of, right? Like, how do I spend less money on Zillow? How am I less married to Zillow in this marketplace, right? So that, for them, that was a big realization. All of my lead sources, how much money am I spending on them? How much money am I making from them? The window has to be at least 90 days, minimum, preferably 6 to 12 months, guys. That's really the best. And where can I scale those up? We're in the end of the year. This is October. We're recording this in October 2021. A lot of teams are going through their 2022 planning right now, or soon to be right now, because they want to look at what they want to do in 2022. This is a key part of that exercise. How much money am I projected to spend this year? How many deals am I think I'm going to close this year? And man, which of these lead sources should I accelerate? And a lot of folks are doing that exercise and finding what that is, and how can I bump that up in 2022, right? That's a big question. So moving over to cold calling, guys, this is where you're probably going to spend the least amount of money. It can be a lot of upside. It's a lot more work. this is where the ISA, in my very humble opinion, is essential, right? Because as a realtor, we don't want to be making 1,000 calls a day. We don't really want to. That's probably not the best use of our time. But that's the kind of effort it takes in some of these markets. I'm not joking. 1,000 dials per day to get some prospects out of it. And in some markets, that's 1 to 2 prospects a day, sellers. And in other markets, Southern California, I'm looking at you, 1 to 2 prospects per week, guys. Cold calling, yeah, but there are teams, I promise you this. There are teams in Southern California that have a full-time telemarketer generating 1 to 2 seller leads per week. And this is the crazy part, they love it, right? Because yeah, those listings can be, median price is 700, 800,000. I'll leave it at that, right? Median price in that area. So, I mean, a good seller lead can be a couple $1 million potentially, right? So again, it all depends on your market, because cold calling can be really challenging to get going. But if you can get it going, the ROI can be 10 times what you get from the Zillows and the Realtor.coms, right? So inbound internet leads, cold calling leads, but there's a third bucket, right? There's a third bucket. I think people kind of overlook it sometimes. It's not a sexy one. It's not a super awesome, oh wow, how could you possibly think of that? It's not. The number 1 ROI lead source I have ever seen for your ISA or for you or for whoever picks up the phone and makes those calls is not inbound internet leads. It is not cold calling the whole neighborhood, the whole city, the whole county. It's actually calling your own database. And maybe you're going to roll your eyes, maybe you're going to go nuts. Oh no, of course not. Guys, for many agents, you've got 500 people in that database. Some agents have almost 1,000 people in that database. If you add on your old internet leads from years past, 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, those databases can be 5,000 leads, 10,000 leads, 30,000 leads. And who's calling that? Nobody is. Let's be honest. No one is, right? Maybe you're calling your A clients, the ones that send you, you're calling them every now and then. Hey, how's it going? You're going to take them out to lunch like Johnny, like a referral part, something like that, right? That's great. But no one, in most teams, I'm only talking about 95% of you guys. I know the rest are doing their job, but 95% of you guys are not calling your database in any consistent way, not adding any value to them. We call these rekindle campaigns, because you're connecting with the database, your friends, family, people that know you, past clients, old internet leads too, and you're offering them something valuable and you're getting a conversation started with them. Mm-hmm. There is no higher ROI activity that you can do. So usually it's what we have, the first thing we have ISAs do, call through the database, get that out of the way. That can be a 1-week activity. For some teams, that is a 3-month activity, calling through their entire database, entire database.
Most agents are only calling their database to the people that want to go have a drink with them, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Making an excuse or
at least do that, right? That's not. I mean, that's not the worst thing ever. Most people don't even call it, Johnny. They don't even call it at all, right? So hey, if you're calling your drinking buddies, at least lead generate with them, right? Like just call them and ask them for business. But most people don't call their database at all. And we did this for a client in Seattle. The serial team out of Seattle, Washington, and in the first 60 days, they generated 55 appointments. The majority of those were listing appointments from their day, just calling their database. That ISA has been working on that with that team for over 18 months because that's a big database. And then they throw other things. Once you're making money from your database, suddenly you've got money for the Facebooks and the Googles and everything, right? But it starts with a 100x return on investment, which is your own database. Like, holy cow, man. You're just paying at that point, you're just paying the ISA. That's your fixed cost. It's just the ISA's time and your time, and there's no lead cost. They're already there. You've already made the effort to get them in your database. You've already bought those internet leads a year ago, right? And they're just sitting there. So, this is usually a surprising thing for people to talk about, but it is true. Make sure that the number one thing you've always got on your list for you to call, for your ISA to call, for anyone on your team, they should have their databases, and following up and calling them is activity number one. Because yes, it's not going to convert like those Zillow leads. We're going back to, okay, we're not talking about conversion rate. Conversion rate is a different topic. I'm talking about at the end of the day, how much money are you going to make per deal? And you're never going to make more money per deal than people that are already in your sphere. in your database. And even those old internet leads, people think that's nuts. I promise you that two things are going to happen. One, you're going to be like Johnny's friend. Some of them already closed. And that is a very humbling call, guys. It's a very like, holy cow, I should have called them earlier. Unless you do it, you don't know what we're talking about, what that feels like. Do it, right? Have your eyes say hello. Because there's going to be other people that needed 6 months before they were motivated.
Oh man, the decision to move next year is made right now. And I've always said August, September, October, November, prime time for prospecting for the following year. And I'm going to blow your minds right now. I would think, judging by the quick mathematics that I just did online, based upon your pricing schedule and 40 hours a week calling, that we're looking at roughly 13 to 14 bucks an hour, right? I think if I did my math right, I mean, you got it on a monthly thing. How much is your time worth? I asked that question in the beginning. Your time should be worth, if you're an agent, $100, $250 an hour. Correct. Depends on where you are, maybe 500 bucks an hour if you're in Southern California, Scottsdale, you know, Dallas metro market, wherever, Miami, I don't know, wherever you are. You all have a time value. How much is your time worth? So if your time is worth $100 an hour, let's just be conservative, right? $100 an hour. Let's even be even more conservative. Let's say $50 an hour. Your time's worth $50 an hour. Why are you doing $13 an hour work? $14 an hour work, $15 an hour work, whatever the number is. It's so you can't. McDonald's is hiring for more money. Okay, I know they are out here. So it brings up what's your ROI? I've always posed it like this with my ISAs. My ISA, I never looked at, I mean, of course, the benefit in what we want is the ISA to get us appointments, right? And the appointments lead to sales. The more appointments you have, the more sales you get. I look at it as capturing my time. So if I'm going to hire you for 40 hours a week, I'm probably going to have 5 hours a week dedicated to answering questions, my team huddles and things like that. But I've captured 35 hours of lead generation, 35 hours of a task that I don't like to do. And most people don't like to do, and we don't do it. At More GCI, our tagline was accountability plus discipline equals success. Nobody's holding you accountable. So put things in place and leverage across it, hire this $14 an hour employee and live your life happily.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, you laid it out in a really interesting way, right? You get time back, right? It's not just your conversion rate is all going to go up, and the process gets more efficient. You're going to have your time back, and I think that's like something as agents can be unfathomable to be. What do you mean getting my time back? I work all week, I work all Saturday, I work all Sunday, I work holidays, I work this, I work that. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's one way to do it. That's one way to do it. And you might have to start that. I've never worked as hard as I ever have in my life as I did my first year in the real estate. And I came from a high-tech software background, right? Real estate, I mean, the ones that hustle. I mean, I was like, you know, really, really into it, doing the open houses and the showings. I would do 4 or 5 of the clients showings on the week, every weekend, Saturday, Sunday. I was going all out, right? Because I wanted to be successful. But I have never worked as hard as that, like an hour per week rate than I did when I was an agent. And it wasn't close, guys. It wasn't close because it's a commission-only sales job, and you have the potential. The more you work, the more you make. That's rare as careers go. It's very rare. It's a huge opportunity for us, but you got to be focused on it, right? And the more the longer you're in the business, you survive that first year, you made it, congratulations. You kind of realize, where is my time better spent? Because that year, my hourly rate, Johnny, was not $100 an hour. Let me just tell you that. It was not. It was like $30 an hour, $25 an hour, because I was working so many hours. By the time I was in my third year in real estate, it was about $150 an hour, right? Because I was making way more money and working way less hours. I was making more GCI and less hours clocked in. I was taking my Sundays off. I was taking part of Saturday off, right? So man, all of those things are the things that make it worth it. And you're not going to achieve it unless you make that decision to have leverage. You get that $13 an hour employee to liberate your $100 an hour activity, your $100 an hour life.
Give you more appointments where you're supposed to be.
Exactly. Attending appointments is $100 to $200 an hour activity. Attending appointments. Making cold calls, that's not a $200 an hour activity. I don't think it's $200 an hour. Talking to the most motivated people out of that cold list, that is a $100 an hour activity. And that's what you should focus on. The ISA allows you to do that. The ISA helps fill in that gap. You become a $50, $80, $100, $200 an hour professional because you're attending those appointments and you're getting better at those appointments, right? How many at-bats does it take to get better at it? When I started I remember I attended, when I was going to ISA generated listing appointments, truly cold listing appointments, truly cold. I went to 22 listing appointments. I didn't get a listing, and I go, okay, the problem is not the ISA, the problem is me, right? I had to get better at my listing. I had to up my game on my listing presentation. I had to take it to the next level. I got a listing coach. I got all these things to make it happen because I'm going, the problem is now me, right? I'm doing the $1,000 an hour activity, and I'm sucking at it. I got to up my game. But the ISA was doing their job. They were getting me in front of listings, right? Sellers, motivated sellers were gonna list. They just didn't choose to list with me. Okay, great. Now I gotta become that $1,000 an hour producer to get those listing appointments. Well, I realized, holy cow, this is the most important thing I'm doing every single day, and I suck at it. I gotta get better, right? So get to that point where you are the highest value activity in the chain, right? And it is not gonna be making the 7th call to that Zillow lead. I don't think that's the highest value activity you're going to do every day.
Yeah. So guys, we're running out of time. I know Jake's going to give us the hook here in a minute. So let's just jump into these final things as we close it out. You got some specials that are going on for LCA that you guys are offering. What are the specials? And then furthermore, how does somebody find you? What's your contact information and those good details that you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So for folks that are interested, one of the ways, right, you get a great ISA on your team, save some time, make the process more efficient, is hiring PowerISA. That's one of the best ways, in my very humble and biased opinion, the best thing you can do. Get someone in there right away. You can get a part-time person, you can get a full-time person, regardless of what kind of agreement you sign with us. Mention LCA, got to mention LCA, or use the link, PowerISA.com/LCA. Book a call through there, free exploration call, and you get to talk to someone on our team about what you want to, and tell them, what are your goals, right? All of my folks that are on the sales team have been ISAs in the past, the highest level of ISA. So you can literally call them just to ask, hey, what should my ISA be doing? Think about my business. What's the best thing that they can do? This is my business right now, and this is what I want to accelerate. What do you recommend? Literally, they have that level of experience, because all of them did the job. They did the job for years, right? They're experts.
And something key for everybody, because I know there's a concern out there, and I want to say this as gently as I can without being offensive as I can. And I know some people have expressed concern for overseas ISAs and a language barrier. A lot of your ISAs were born in America or lived in America, something along those lines, correct? In their Western hemisphere folks versus Eastern hemisphere folks. So you got people on this side that are making those phone calls. So that should help put some people at ease that it's not going to be, you know what you're getting. You know what you're getting.
Yeah. 100%, and there's a lot of companies that do this. There's a lot of options out there. I totally understand. There's a lot of them in the Philippines, a lot of really hardworking people out there, but it's not the same, right? When you have someone that grew up in the US, speaks English like an American, understands slang and the lingo and sarcasm. Sarcasm is a very American thing, guys. It's a very American thing. They can roll with the punches with someone in the US. It's a big difference on your conversion rate, on your connection rate, all of those things. But I mean, I'll say no more. A PowerISA/LCA, you get $100 off a monthly retainer. Check it out. Talk to one of our sales folks. Get that free consultation on what you're doing, what you want to accomplish, and how an ISA can fit into your business. They're the best people out there to give you some advice and tell you what an ISA can do for you, so you can make the decision whether it's a good idea or not. We also have a course. If your vision is to build an ISA team, we can teach you how to do that. We have a 120-person team. We know a thing or two about hiring ISAs, scaling teams, building systems to keep them accountable, all that fun stuff. If you're interested in growing your team to that level, get into the Build Your ISA course. You get $500 off by mentioning LCA. I have about a dozen people in that course right now. One of them is about to reach the 30 ISA mark on their team. Not joking. 30 ISAs. And they're only doing Facebook, by the way. That should be the title of the next webinar. How to build a 30-person ISA team just from Facebook. That's a pretty crazy story. But that's the level of producer that is in that mastermind, in that group. And they love sharing stuff, and they love talking about building ISA teams and hiring people and scripts and lead sources. But it's very specific to people that have that kind of vision. If your vision is to build an ISA team, scale it up, then that's the best option for you. So but we give you both. The dedicated person, hired, trained, managed by us, or the option to build everything on your own if you want to scale it up to that level. Let us know what you need, and we can help you with both those options.
That's awesome. PowerISA.com/LCA. And I'm telling you guys, if the things that we've talked about here doesn't at least get you to book the call, might not be the right time, but if you're paying for leads, I think it's the right time. My friend lost 30 some odd $1 million in business over a year period due to improper follow-up. And I can tell you as an individual agent, I bet you there's 4 or 5 or 6 million in there that you've missed as well. How many times have you called somebody and or you went to meet with somebody and then looked on MLS and there was their listing, or y'all know the frustration and everything else that comes in with that. $13 an hour, bro. $14 an hour. Hire the person, get more business. That's it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. It's been really fun, Johnny. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thank you. If there's any questions, put them in the chat. We'll get to them later. I didn't see any pop up here. That's why I didn't bring them up. So on behalf of LabCoatAgents, Gus, thank you for taking your time and talk about PowerISA.
All right. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.